Everybody's heard about the Berlin Wall, but really, not a lot of people understand why it was created or what led up to the creation of the Berlin Wall, right? Post World War II, Berlin was divided into two sections. This was the West and the East. The US basically controlled in a way by setting up a capitalist government in West Berlin, while the USSR set up a communist government in East Berlin. But there was a problem, which was that West Berlin was way richer economically than East Berlin, which caused the flee of many East Berlin smart citizens and young to flee to West Berlin to look for a better life, because, come on, money. Okay, now that we're finally caught up with the situation, let's actually get to the crisis itself. The meat and potatoes. Okay. Our main character is Khrushchev, who was a mean looking dude, who also happened to be the premier of the Soviet Union. So what Khrushchev was trying to do was try to convince the US and their allies to stop assisting West Berlin, but obviously that wasn't gonna work. So what they actually tried to do was to give East Germany full power of the borders. So West Berlin quite literally said, hell nah! The US and the USSR had to come to terms somehow, so they agreed on getting together in a conference which was called the Geneva Conference, which occurred in 1959. In this conference, Eisenhower, who was the 34th president of the United States, as a fun fact, and Khrushchev met up and tried to come to terms on what to do with Berlin. But obviously they had different political views, which ended up leading to nothing. And so we're gonna come to the agreement. Eisenhower, are you even listening? Everything I've told you about Eisenhower does not matter. Actually, it does, alright? But in 1960, elections were held to elect a new president. And this would end up being John F. Kennedy, whom would later be assassinated by the CIA. Yeah. Kennedy had new plans on how to manage the situation between the USSR and the US and countries that were being threatened by communism. But Khrushchev saw the young and inexperienced Kennedy as a big opportunity to take a chance in this situation. Wait, but what was going on in Berlin while these guys argued? That's a great question. Obviously, while these guys argued, people in Berlin from the east were still migrating into the west. A great example is in August 12 of 1961, 40,000 Eastern Berlin citizens migrated to Western Berlin. That's a lot of people, man. Indeed it is. Quite frankly, Khrushchev was tired of their, and excuse my language, poopy. So on August 13th of that same year, Khrushchev finally takes action and decides to close the borders between East Berlin and West Berlin. He first does this by using barbed wire, and then he actually decides to build the most infamous wall in Berlin. How many walls in Berlin do you actually know? Even though there were existing trails and pathways to enter West Berlin through East Berlin, these were obviously heavily guarded by these big Russian dudes, well, Soviet dudes. So in a way, the Berlin Wall that Khrushchev built kind of symbolizes him saying, I messed up, right? His propaganda strategies didn't work in the east and people kept fleeing to the west because there were better opportunities of life. So the wall kind of traps people into this communist side of Berlin. The wall meant a permanent division between families and friends for people in the west and in the east. But in reality, it kind of eased up the tension in between the USSR and the US in a weird way, since instead of finding a way to separate the East and the West, you just build a wall and they're completely separated. So the tension moved from Europe into Asia again. That was the Berlin crisis, and hope you guys liked it. And man, if you didn't, like, too bad, you know? I mean, leave me a comment or something. But yeah, awesome. Have a good day.